Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you, Scott. Delighted to see so many colleagues able to join us for what will now be known as the Symposium of the College in the spring, as we rebrand a couple aspects of our engagement. Fall will be convocation, and spring will be symposium. And then you'll see from the program, the items for the discussion this afternoon are really transformational. And to get us going, I want to invite our President, Marcia V. Keyes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and greetings, greetings, greetings. I hope the semester is off to a fast start. I know that many of us, despite having passed, we have not really put Sandy behind us, both in the level of full recovery in our own homes and sometimes even just recovery spiritually and psychologically. And I know that that is very likely the case for some among our colleagues here as well as our students. But nonetheless, we have started our semester. We have achieved 8,081 in terms of our head count of students. I will say to you that is down just a little bit by 1.4 over last spring. But the upside of the news is that despite the fact that we've lost a few students, and we're certainly going to try to stay in touch with them and find out why and see if we can bring them back, when we look at our full-time equivalents, that's the number of credits that students actually take, we're actually up by 1%, even though our head count is down by 1%. So it's a sort of good sign in terms of those who come back are coming back serious, taking maybe a few more credits, 1 or 2 more credits to get better bang for their buck. We do have to make sure, of course, that as they take those additional credits, that they stay whole, they stay focused, and they do the right thing. I do want to just add a word of welcome to 4 new members of the faculty community. I don't know that they're here this afternoon, but I'll just mention them. Someone who's really returned to us, who had been away for a while, but she has come back, Professor Anna Mara, in the Teacher Ed department. I don't know if she's here. Professor Miss Allison Aline, who was known to us in other quarters, but who is now substituting as a lecturer in the Business and Economics department. Mr. McCrell, who's come to us new as a substitute in the Performing Arts department. And Sana Gul, who is a substitute, a new substitute, CLT in biology. I just want to welcome those folks to our ranks. If you're here, if you happen to be here, if your name was called, please stand so we can say hello to you. If not, please let them know that they got a little bit of an official welcome at our symposium. And then my final comment, and it really is to thank the people who have been on the front lines of CUNY First. They have been the early adopters, not so much because they wanted to be early adopters, but because they were pressed into service. But they have been the ones who have been the content specialists who have worked with the central office and elsewhere to assure that when we go live, as you will hear this spring, that we are as ready as we can be. And I know that some of you had a chance to meet some of them last week when we had that kickoff, that very exciting kickoff, essentially for students, but for the college community at large. So if any of our CUNY First early adopters are in the house, I just ask you to stand. I know many of them are not here because they're probably at the central office continuing to do the good work that they need to do. Many of those individuals are in the bursar's office, in the registrar's office, in financial aid, in IT, in counseling, in admissions. And have I left anyone out in that cluster? I'm sure that when time comes, Mr. Hodge on the program will acknowledge them as well. But I do really want to say a very heartfelt thank you to those individuals who have been the leaders on this effort. And I do want us to give them a round of applause in absentia so they will know that our good wishes are with them and our heartfelt thanks also go to them. Thank you so much. Let's see what the symposium brings us.
Round of applause for President Keyes. Let me invite VP Thomas and Director Michelle Hodge to come to the front as we prepare for the first substantive transformational item, CUNY First.
Thank you very much, Provost Griffith. In your opening remarks, you talked about a number of initiatives that are truly transformational. And the backdrop behind me is one of them. It will, in fact, change the campus as we know it, and hopefully there will be some enduring longevity to this project. But it's a little way off. There is another transformational project that's a little more immediate. And that is the one to which the President referred, the CUNY First project. I am pretty sure, yeah, I think so. Not the CUNY First. This is not an illustration of what happens with CUNY First. Okay. Okay, all right, thank you. Over the past 3 years or so, we have been engaged in this very significant transformation of the university called CUNY First. It is an enterprise system that will, in fact, change the way in which we do business. Our business processes have already begun to change. For most of us, or for some of us, in fact, CUNY First has already arrived. But for some of you, it is yet to come. That kickoff will occur in the next few weeks or so. And by saying that CUNY First has already arrived, I'm referring to the general ledger. But since most of you are not involved in the college's accounting, it went seamlessly and silently, and you did not notice it. For those of you who may have recently joined the college, you may have been involved in the human capital management aspect in HR, and there are some aspects of that that have long been live and that you may, in fact, be participating in. But the campus solutions, which is the next model, or the next module of CUNY First that will be implemented, will touch us all. In fact, it will be the end of SIMS, and I know some of you are happy about that, and you will welcome CUNY First in a few weeks. Now, all of you faculty began this semester in SIMS, but you will end the semester in CUNY First. Okay? So part of what we are doing is moving forward with a series of training initiatives where the full-time faculty, the staff, the adjuncts will all be made familiar with how this new system will work. And essentially all that this does is move forward the concept of the integrated university. All campuses will be using the same system. We'll be able to move data around seamlessly, both among and within our campuses. As we move forward, and there's another transformational aspect that will be coming, about which we will hear later, and that's the pathways word, that will make it possible for students and their records to move seamlessly within the university. CUNY First will make that possible in a very significant way. But I want to spend most of the time actually asking Michelle to come and give us an illustration of the world in which you're about to enter within the next 3 weeks, so that we can take you through the live experience of what it would be like to enter and submit your grades online in the new CUNY First system. So Michelle will now take us through that. You can just do the escape. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. How many people are excited about CUNY First? You know, when we did this with the students last week, they were fired up and ready to go. I mean, they were. So what I wanted to do is take a few minutes to show you what the environment looks like. What I've learned playing with CUNY First for the last, 3 years, is for about 2 years and 10 months of that time, I had no idea what this thing looked like, right? And that creates a lot of anxiety. And then, when you finally see it, you can then make more accurate judgment of how hard or easy this is gonna be for you. So what I wanna show you today is one of the first things you're gonna do, and some of you have already started to do if you've gone to a training session, is you're going to go into a part of CUNY First that trains you how to use CUNY First. And in that training environment, it actually shows you what CUNY First looks like and guides you through the system. So that's what we're going to do briefly. I probably will not go through the entire lesson, but I want you to see it. I want you to see kind of some of the things that may happen or not happen when you do this. And what we want to do is show people as much as we can before they actually have to enter the environment in the high stakes time, like when you want to actually enter your grades, so that you have a comfort level, because things will probably go wrong here and there. And some of the things are fairly easy to fix. Some of the things take some IT folks to fix. But the more familiar you are with the system, the more comfortable you'll be with communicating with it. Before I get into that, there are people in the room who are CUNY First trainers or UAT testers. Can you stand, please? We got a few in the back there. These are folks who have been working on training. I see Bruni Almodovar there, I see Nona Reese, I see Johnny, is it Ms. Brown in the back, hiding back there? And Ms. Brown in the back. These are all folks who have been working to get the system up and actually to train folks. And they may chime in when I don't know the answer to a question. All right, so the first thing you're gonna do with CUNY First is a web-based system. So you're gonna open up an Internet Explorer window or Firefox or Safari or Chrome. The CUNY First system does do some quirky things in some of the other systems, but it works in all of those browsers. But we're going to use Internet Explorer today because most people know and have that on their computers. I don't know how many people know what their sign-in is. How many people have claimed their ID? Oh, great. So most of you know. Excellent. Give yourselves a pound. Let me tell you, that part alone is one of the most frustrating parts of this. And if you got that down, you're going to be well on your way to using CUNY First. A little clue. Your sign-in, the last 2 digits of your sign-in are actually the last 2 digits of what we call an EMPL ID. It's short for Employee ID. You should get to know what that ID is, and later on I'm going to show you why it's important to know that. And let me just put in my password here. Okay. So we're actually doing it in the environment, so hopefully everything will work just as nice and seamlessly as it will at your desktop. So when you sign in, this is what you've seen, right? And most people have seen this. Don't be alarmed if what you see on my screen as far as menus is different than what you have. In CUNY First, everything is tied to your security role. And they try to customize the views tied to what you can do or the functions that you do, and try to minimize things. Some of these shots that you're going to see have massive menus. Don't be alarmed if you don't see that massive menu when you sign in. We're going to go into something called the Enterprise Learning Management System, fondly known as ELM. And there are a whole set of acronyms and sayings that go along with CUNY First. But ELM is the Enterprise Learning Management System, and you simply click that. Again, it's a web-based system, so if you're used to navigating on the internet, this will not be unfamiliar to you. Again, you'll see a menu system over here, and what we want to do, it's kind of counterintuitive, but we want to go to self-service here. And once you go into self-service, you're going to create a drop-down menu on the side, which you see right here, and you also see menus over here. This is essentially what CUNY First looks like almost always when you're trying to navigate from one place to the next. And in CUNY First, like most modern software and websites, there's usually more than one way to do something. So we want to go to the learning, and you'll see that the learning is right here and the learning is here. Those are both the same exact hyperlinks. And what we're going to do is we're going to go and browse the catalog. Now, don't try to write too much of the stuff down. We have little aids to help you with these, and we'll distribute those when you start to do the faculty training. But I want you to just kind of see how the navigation works. You'll notice that it sends you to something called the CUNY First Training Program or the Professional Development and Learning. That Professional Development and Learning module is not active for us at this time. We're just using the CUNY First Training Program. And what I want to do is actually, I'm going to shortcut all this and go back to my side menu and go to Search Catalog. Now, here's a neat thing. It's a pretty robust system. And what I want to show you today is something about grades. But I don't actually know the name of this module. So I'm going to put in what I know, which is grades. And it's going to search the database. And you'll notice down here at the bottom, hopefully you all can see that, I'll scroll here, it says Faculty Self-Service. Those of you who are in faculty, you're going to spend a lot of time in this module. This is kind of where your functions live. And this is called the Faculty Self-Service Training module. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to enroll. This is the same thing you're going to do, and you can do at your desktop whenever you like. And again, if this is small and you can't see it, I apologize. It was as big as we can get the screen at this time, but when you're at your desktop, it'll be very clear for you to see it. Okay, once you do that, it's going to bring up an actual lesson. And you need to enroll, just like how you would enroll in a course. So you're going to submit enrollment. If you get this error, this is because you already enrolled. So I purposely have some of the errors popping up so that you can see what to do to get out of the error. Okay, so it says a duplicate is found. Oh, great, I already enrolled in this. Well, if you enroll in something, it remembers. And so you go to My Learning. And look at it. There it is right there. Faculty Self-Service. That's this right here. And if I launch it, like I'm launching a program, it'll take a little time, it'll say, oh, okay, well, here it is. And there are actually 5 lessons. Well, I want to learn how to enter grades using the grade roster. Now, normally you would go through these in order, but I just want to show you, because I know you're interested in entering your grades. And when VP Thomas said you started the semester in Sims and you're ending in CUNY First, this is why you're ending in CUNY First, because you're going to be adding the grades for the students this semester in CUNY First. So I just wanted to show you a little bit of how you can navigate to the lesson and actually some screenshots of what it looks like. Uh-oh, what happened? I just clicked on it, nothing happened. Did anybody see what happened? Can anybody help me? Oh, okay. So those of you who are familiar with web pages know that sometimes you have your browser set up for security, and you have pop-ups blocked. You will need to turn those off. So again, this is one of those things that happens. We've had experience where people have gotten frustrated, and it's simply because a pop-up blocker is on. And Internet Explorer makes it easy. You just click there, and you will always allow this site and say yes. Now, it does kick you back to the beginning when you do that. So again, you're just going to go to My Learning, your faculty self-service, and you're going to scroll down a little bit here, and we're going to relaunch that, and then we're going to go back to our lesson that we want to relaunch, and this time it should go right to it. Okay. Does everybody see that okay? I'm going to make this just a little bigger and scroll so you can see some things here. Okay. You'll notice right over here, this Oracle User Productivity Kit, we call it the UPK. This is a module that is part of CUNY First to help you practice in a safe environment. You can't break anything. You can play around with certain things, but it's a guided tour. There's actually another environment called a simulation environment that has real data in it. And again, you can't break anything, but the data in this part is made up data, so you don't have to worry about security or somebody being there when you're messing with it or doing it at home or someplace where people can see what you're doing. There are 3 modes. There's a know-it mode. At CUNY, we don't use the know-it mode. The know-it mode is basically a test. And it grades you, and it grades very harshly. It's not a friendly grader. We found that most people don't enjoy it or learn using it, so we don't do it. But if you've done this a few times and you're looking for a challenge, try know-it. There's also the see-it mode. And see-it mode is basically like a video. So some people like to take notes. You can actually watch the computer do the steps, and you can make your own little side notes if you want. But we're going to use the try-it mode. That's the mode we like the best. Because try-it mode is basically a guided, you do something, the computer makes sure you do the right thing, and you can see how it works. So you're going to go to try it. And just as I said, it's going to guide you through it. So here it is. It's telling you, enter grades using the grade roster. And it has little instructions. And I know some of this is hard to read, so I'm going to read a little bit of this. Instructors use the Faculty Center to enter, approve, and submit grades in their courses. So remember, we did that little navigation for that. And if you look down here, here's the navigation, self-service, Faculty Center, and it brings you to My Schedule, what they had told you about before you got to this point. I'm going to hit enter to actually start the lesson. So there it goes. There's that self-service in the menu system. You click that, and then it's going to bring you to the Faculty Center. Remember, that's the home for where your rosters are. You're going to go to My Schedule, and look at there. There are your classes. This is what it will display like. And I'll bring this down a little bit so you can see more of the fields. That's too small. There we go. So you'll notice this is what the course is listed as. This is the title. Actually tells you how many people enrolled, the room it's in, tells you all kind of information about the course.
That's not a real course, right?
That's don't worry, on the budget side and on the faculty load side, it's okay. This is only a demonstration. All right, and in fact, that's an interesting point. CUNY First tries to give you information in chunks you can kind of digest, but you may want to see more, and quite often there are more buttons that you'll look for at the end of these list, and they'll give you more. So obviously if you had 50 people in the class or 20 people in the class and you only saw 5, chances are there's a little click and you'll get the whole roster, but we won't cover that today. There's a little person, looks like they're pointing at a blackboard. That is the grade roster button. You click that, and what happens is on that page, in the student grade area, the roster displays a list of the enrolled students in alphabetical order, and it gives you all this information about the students. So we're going to continue on. Remember I talked about that EMPL ID and why it's important? It's important for you, it's also important for students. Here it is, that EMPL ID. There's different ways to find people in CUNY First, but the fastest way is to put in their EMPL ID. If you put in Mary, what's going to happen, I don't know if you were listening when VP Thomas was talking before, where all this data for the integrated university is in one place. If you put in Mary, it's going to pull up every Mary in CUNY and try to queue up all their records so that you could view it. So it could take a while, right? Because Mary is a pretty common name. There's probably, I don't know, probably 1.5 million people individually in this system. And I bet you a good portion of them are named Mary. It's going to take a while and crank away. If you knew Mary Smith Tyler's EMPL ID, comes up right away, right? But in this case, what they did was they put in Bronx, and they got 2 different students. So you go in, and you're going to assign grades using the little drop-down menu, and it's going to show you, see right there next to the student's name, roster grade. You're going to pull down the A+, good student, give them their grade. You're going to then just go down to the next one, and still a good student, but they got an A-, and you're going to give them the grade. So when you're done, you're going to save, and you'll see the save button right here. What's shown next to the save as pull-down menu is very important. If it says not reviewed, this is a good thing because you can go and come back as many times as you want. You could save, you can make sure everything's good, come back, change your grade, do things. Once you change that status and save it, it locks the record. But right now, it's an open record, so you could do, maybe you're only doing half your grades today and you're going to tackle the rest tomorrow. And that way you don't lose your work. And I'm actually going to stop there because the rest of the lesson really goes into some procedural things that maybe departments will handle in different ways, and I don't want to convolute things. But what I really want to do is kind of show you what it looks like, and for some of you, you may think, oh, this is kind of familiar. I do this on different types of websites. And for some of you, you may think, maybe I don't do this, but I can easily access this system myself and in my own time be able to learn the new system. At this time, I want to just kind of open it up for a few questions on CUNY First, and then we'll keep the program moving along.
Go ahead, Debbie.
I noticed right on that screen actually that you're on, it says enter my textbook, so is this the new way we're going to start ordering our book?
Yes, if you enter my textbooks, you see this one right here. Yeah, this is another thing that CUNY First will do. The goal of CUNY First is to get as much of the information and data in one place as possible. And that makes it easier for something extremely important and to me makes this whole transition worthwhile. Is that all this data and all this work, and for some things that we do in some of the offices, it literally is more work. The students get more information in one place, and they're able to do things without having to maybe wait on a line or hope that the person that they get to at the end of the line actually knows what it means. It's very explicit, and so that's why things like entering your textbooks are in there. Student goes to one place, they'll be able to see it.
But do we know when that'll be turned on?
I have two questions. I have 2 questions. One is this cross-campus so that the same program is available if one teaches at more than one campus? Will it look the same? And the other thing is, what's the relationship between this and CUNY Portal?
Sure. Okay, the first thing is, yes, this will look the same at all the campuses. There's minor branding that shows up on the login page, but other than that, it all looks the same. And if somebody is training, say I'm doing a training session and Ms. Almodovar is doing a training session, it's going to look the same. Its relation to the CUNY portal, though, is that this is its own portal. It's the CUNY First portal. You can access it from the CUNY portal. It'll dump you from one portal to the other, but it is its own portal, and it is separate from Blackboard. It's separate from your email, but a lot of the other things are contained in, that you do are contained in CUNY First.
One last question on this. It's going to be Scott.
I wanted to know you, I had gone to your training, and I've never been given an Apple ID. And you had said you'd send out to everyone how to find an Apple ID. I just want to remind people to do that in case we got our login and didn't realize the Apple ID was that important so early in the game.
Yes. So those of you who claimed your accounts may not know your Ample ID and didn't write it down or print that screen. We are going to get some instructions so that people can access the system and pull up your Ample ID so that you can put that somewhere where you know you can find it. I think we are.
We'll take one more.
Okay.
It should be one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One more?
It's going to be you.
Use the mic, Charlie.
If there's a student transferring from another CUNY college and we want to look at their record, would we from York have access to do that based on their ID?
Beautiful question. I love this question. This is the beauty of the system. There's only one record. That person is that person no matter what school they go to. So when you enter that Ample ID, it's a unique ID for them. You will be able to see certain things from wherever they were in their career. And in fact, it's the one ID, so if you were a student at one point in time and now you're an employee, all that data hangs off of that ID, and it's all in one nice, neat place.
Makes it easier to catch multiple positions.
Okay.
Round of applause for VP Thomas and Michelle Hodge.
I think we are. Okay.
Let me just make two quick observations while I invite Dean Militis and Dr. Haller to come to the chairs. We had a kickoff last Thursday, I think it was, which went fabulously, and so I want to give a round of applause for the marketing team and the IT team that led that effort. It was superb. Let's give them a round of applause, even if you were not there. And the second observation is that there'll be further opportunities for conversation, training, orientation on CUNY First. So even if your question was not answered fully, or even if you didn't get a chance to ask your question, please know that there'll be other opportunities to hear about CUNY First and to practice, among other things. Let's move now to our second item, also transformational, and that item is pathways. I'll make two quick observations and turn it over to Dean Militis and Cindy Haller. Observation number one is that, as many of our colleagues, particularly in the faculty, know, Pathways has two main components to it. Component number one is the curricular design and wonderful leadership by a committee led by Donna Chirico, started working on our curricular design, I think it was March or April of last year. I'd like to invite all the colleagues who were part of that Pathways, York Pathways Committee, just to stand so our colleagues can acknowledge the wonderful work done, not during the spring only, but through the summer into the fall. Let's have all the colleagues involved, including staff people. Please stand so we can acknowledge you. Please stand. And the staff people involved include Richard from Institutional Advancement. I was so impressed with what I had already known, Carol's efficiency. Within 24 hours of a committee meeting, you had the minutes going to everyone who is relevant. The curricular part of CUNY design, the pathways design at York has been moving forward exceptionally well. But there is a broader than York component to the CUNY pathways curricular component. And that is the university has a number of review committees where York faculty also are doing service, have been doing service since last year. Indeed, one of those committees, and I think there are 8 committees, is led by one of our own faculty from social sciences, Bill DeValle. And many of our colleagues is there. I'd like to invite the colleagues who are serving on those review committees, looking at the submissions from throughout the university and rendering judgment as to whether or not those committees, whether those submissions have met the benchmark. And the benchmark is essentially the learning objectives, the learning outcomes. Any colleagues serving on the review committees in the room, I'd like to have you stand so we can know who you are and acknowledge your work. The work is significant. Thank you, Fabi. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Cindy. So there is that component, most of it done, and I'll share with you in a minute a handout that gives you a sense as to how the submissions across the university have been handled. But there's a second component. Once you design, you've got to deliver, you've got to implement. And so there is a gamut of activities, some of which have begun, some of which will soon begin, that allows us to see where the action needs to be and what's the status. And I'll give you a handout in a minute that allows you to see that broad engagement. But I thought it would be good for us to hear from Dean Melitis and Cindy Haller in several different respects, telling us a little bit about the implementation. Dean Melitis not only is critical to our enrollment management and significant in our curriculum at the college, but he's serving as our liaison to CUNY. The university asked each campus to invite the provost to identify someone to serve as the campus liaison to the university, and Dean Melitis has been serving in that respect. And Cindy Haller is co-chairing one of the important committees of the implementation committee. Cindy Haller, as many of you know, has been serving very outstanding service in the last number of years in the advising council. And we are delighted to have her continue in that vein, but focusing on pathways advising. So I'm delighted to have Cindy tell us what's happening, what's planned on the advising front. So let me invite Dean Melitis and Cindy to give some remarks. Then we'll take a few questions after which, or during which I will circulate the few handouts that we have.
Thank you, Provost. It's a pleasure to see everybody again. I think it was about this time last year that we initiated our Pathways endeavor, and through the hard work of many people from the college and across the university, we can say that we are reaching a milestone next week. The milestone is that our hard work on pathways, on designing a pathways proposal for the college will be published in the Chancellor's University Report next week. I think we are doing some finishing touches on some of the courses who are going to be reviewed this week and hopefully approved, and is going to be published. That milestone will allow us to initiate the implementation process for the pathways. As the Provost said, although we haven't really taken any concrete actions in implementation, we have been having a lot of discussions and a lot of committee meetings on what we need to do. We have been preparing a college website. It's going to be coordinating with the university website to post similar materials, the university materials for the pathways, but also materials that are specific to your college. For example, the college option, which is going to be a specific item in the general education curriculum for York. It's going to be a lot of other information, frequently asked questions for students and faculty to find out about the historic perspective of pathways, but also about the impact of pathways on faculty, on students, on degree programs, and everybody else who is going to be involved. An information campaign for students and faculty will be initiated soon, and the specific piece of that information campaign, which will be the advisement piece, will be addressed by Dr. Haller. As part of that information campaign, we are going to have the normal things. We are going to do training for faculty. We are going to provide information to students as needed, reach out to them through the plasma screens, through emails, through letters. Even the university design a small card on pathways that they are going to send us a few hundred of them, but we are going to duplicate more of them in-house to make available to students and faculty as needed. Other things, in addition to the website and the cards, it's important that departments train their faculty, specifically faculty who are going to be coming in contact with the students. Faculty need to be able to give the right information to students, provide the right advice when asked by the students. I cannot meet with all the students. I would love to, but it's practically impossible.
I thought you already do that, email at this meeting, and see them lining up inside.
Students usually have a lot of contact with faculty in the classroom, and many times they are getting a lot of important information from faculty and their instructors. So it's important that no matter what our feelings are about pathways, we provide the students for their own benefit accurate information, because if the students do not receive the accurate information, we are going to have problems later on. These kind of things usually find a way to come back to us years later. Other than that, I'll let Professor Haller tell you about the advisement effort.
Well, you've heard about the information and needing to have accurate information. The advisement subcommittee has been working to make sure that this wonderful curriculum that's been developed over the year gets translated to students and faculty in ways that make it easy to understand. Our big objective is to ensure accuracy, accessibility, and appropriate distribution of program and advising materials. And that's a big goal. The first thing that we've already begun working on, as many of you know, is updating the four-year plans, which will be important documents for students coming in, which incorporate the Pathways curriculum. As of today, I still needed 13, and you know who you are, as Donna always likes to say. Four-year plans. The deadline for submission is Friday, so I'd like to remind any chairs.
Friday of which week?
This week.
Okay.
This week, sure. In terms of that. So we should be collecting those. That's right, tomorrow. And so we're looking for that information from the chairs. Once that's in, we've already lined up some people to begin working on editing and formatting the plans for consistency across the college so that each four-year plan will look alike. Students will be able to know the format and navigate it easily. After they're developed, we'll post it on the website. We'll provide links from other parts of the website. Every department can put up their four-year plans as well. And we'll make some hard copies available to the key areas that work directly with student advising. It's important, too, that once these four-year plans are done, that each department is going to be auditing the information about their programs and updating any brochures, any print materials, any electronic materials, and getting those ready and in place and accurate for the fall. As Dean Malatias mentioned, there are going to be meetings in each department. That's another thing that's also due Friday, is the date that you will be having your department meetings, because we would like to have a member of the Advising Implementation Subcommittee join you to be able to answer any questions that faculty may have about pathways. So be sure to send us your dates for your training in the departments if you have not already. And also, Les Raphael, the director of the Academic Advisement Center, is going to be setting up different training for many of the different advising units, special programs, other related groups who need to understand the new Pathways curriculum. There will be 2 articles coming out in the Academic Affairs Update, generally we're going to get information out to faculty. I would say, for the faculty who are here, the biggest question our current students are going to be faced with in the spring is whether or not they should opt into the Pathways program. By default, they will not be in Pathways. They will be in their current general education curriculum. As of fall 2013, all new students will be, transfers and freshmen. So be prepared to work with students to determine whether Pathways is a better option for them. It can be a more forgiving general education curriculum in many different ways, the number of credits, the ability to use courses for multiple purposes. The cardinal check what-if function should be able to help you to assess the students and so be working with them. That is probably the number one question. That's really all I wanted to say, except also to acknowledge that Heather Robinson and Linda Jongo-Haley will be working on the marketing end of this. So if you have any ideas for getting the message out to students, please let them know.
Great. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Cindy. A round of applause for our colleagues. We've got time for a few questions or comments, but I'm sharing with you two handouts that give you an opportunity to see where things are with the university overall. While we get those handouts, and I don't know if there are copies for each colleague, let me just make one observation and something Dr. Hallam mentioned and something else that Dean Melatis mentioned. She talked about training and opportunity for conversation within the departments. We have a reality at York now that we have a significant number of adjunct colleagues. It's going to be important that the conversations extend to those adjunct colleagues. We don't want two streams of information, one given with accuracy by full-time colleagues and staff, and one given by less than accurate information by adjunct colleagues. We also know in relation to adjuncts that any opportunities to invite them to do quote-unquote extra work obliges us to pay them. And so that is an issue we prepare to deal with. It's part of our intended request to Central for some supplemental funding so that we, A, don't leave our adjunct colleagues out of the conversation, and B, we adequately, under the contract, remunerate them. If you've had a chance to get a copy of the back-to-back, the one that says course submissions, every couple of months, university provost sends to the provost and to the liaisons a kind of a status update, showing us how the submissions and the resolution of those submissions have been taking place. And you see what the status of each of the colleges is. This allows us to dispel some of the conversation which is in the realm of myth that Pathways is stalled. We're moving forward, the university is moving forward, this will be implemented soon. If you look on the second page that says implementation plan, I'd like to invite the colleagues who are part of the implementation committee just to stand, because as we know, Pathways implementation is not only an academic affairs project, it's a college-wide project involving advancement, administrative affairs, so student development. So could I invite all the colleagues serving on the Pathways Implementation Committee? Please stand so we can acknowledge you, whether you're faculty or staff, irrespective of what division you're in. And yes, Donna, you have to stand to be acknowledged. It's a lot of work, and we want to show our appreciation to the colleagues involved. And all this is happening while we're doing other transformations, one being CUNY First. Any questions, comments for Cindy and Dean? Scott?
I wanted to remind all the departments.
Do we need to have a mic? Do we need to have a microphone? So yes.
I wanted to remind all the departments and all the chairs, as you change your plans, and as you change your material, to please send copies to the library to put in the archives. Not to forget.
Very important point. Thank you, Scott. Gail? Incidentally, before Gail speaks, Gail, for colleagues who may not be familiar with her, is our degree works coordinator, and the degree work scribing is a critical component of the advising. And so Gail's function is, she's not allowed to take Sundays off as some colleagues are. Thanks, Gail.
You're welcome. I just wanted to say that I've been going through the bulletin just to identify where general education is mentioned and different courses. Different majors state in the bulletin, these courses, X course is necessary and take this for gen ed and take that. And I just want to encourage the chairs and the departments to look at that information, because that information may need to be changed if those courses no longer exist in the pathways that are identified. And again, I'm not, I don't know which ones are, which ones aren't, but it's something that the chairs need to look at, because that is, I believe, a chancellor's report action to remove that information and to change it so that it will, correlate with the pathways courses or not. I mean, if those courses are still what the majors want the students to take, then that's one thing, but it's just something to look at. All through the bulletin, and I'm going to hand that over to Dr. Henke today, I highlighted through the bulletin everywhere where it mentions general education. And that language may even just need to be looked at.
Great.
So it's just something to think about.
Yep. Thanks for that very important observation. Yeah. The bulletin conversation has begun, and it's important for us to, again, acknowledge the importance of departments taking ownership. One of the A words that both Dean Meletis and Cindy use is accuracy. We want to be sure that there's accuracy, and Deb Swoboda is going to be part of this effort to be sure that we are on the same page with accurate information, and accurate information in other places like the web. And so at the appropriate time, colleagues will need to take ownership in their respective departments to verify. But I'd say one thing about verifying programmatic or curricular design implementation. The benchmark against which we will determine what stays in or is not in is the chancellor's report. So if you see something that you suspect is accurate, and you send a note to Gail and say, change this, Gail may not act the way you want her to act, because she's going to check to see what this chancellor's report says. And so please don't feel frustrated when she tells you, this may not be entirely kosher for us to act on now. The chancellor's report is the benchmark that we'll use for accuracy. I saw Janice, okay.
I would just like to clarify something about the sheet you passed out, and then also one point of information about
which one, Janice?
Registration. It's the course submissions.
Okay.
Provost Griffith, you said there's a myth that Pathways has been stalled. There are two parts to adopting Pathways. One has to do with the Senates, and as far as I know, York is the only Senate that has passed it. There may be one or two others, I don't know. But there's nothing about that on this sheet. But the other thing is, if you look at the size of CUNY campuses like Brooklyn, for example, and see that they've only passed 28 courses while York has passed 68, I think to make the statement that that Pathways is being stalled as a myth is a bit premature. So let us wait and see what happens in the next weeks when the final word will be out on that. As to York, I have a very big concern for our current students. I know that in one department, for example, where 1,500 at least students still need well, it's Cultural Diversity 101. They have only put 5 courses on the books, which could hold, what, 150 students? And they put many Pathways courses on the books. As an educator, when I advise students, I have to do what I honestly, in my heart, feel is best for them. And the Modern Language Association, as well as the AAUP, is condemning pathways. I do not want students who are currently enrolled to be forced to go into pathways because they don't have a choice of courses. So I am just asking faculty, look at the schedules for your students because we've got to accommodate our current students. And it would be a shame if a lot of our students transferred out of York because they're not being offered the current gen ed courses that they're going to be needing. Thank you.
Okay. I'll just make two quick observations in that. Everyone in this room has the interests of our students at heart. None of us is pursuing any project inimical to the interests of our students. If the students are not here, we are not going to be here. So even if you took a self-interested position, we're here because the interests of our students needs to be served. I'm not going to debate you, Janice, as to whether myth is an appropriate word to use. I can tell you two things. We at York are proceeding. The hard work of the faculty has paid off so far. We are proceeding with implementation. Work begun by faculty and staff is moving ahead. And I can't attest to what's happening at Brooklyn College or other colleges, but I'll tell you from the university standpoint, Pathways is moving ahead. Yes, there have been expressions of condemnation by some associations, but there have also been expressions of support from institutions across the nation. So I think in the best interest of our students, we need to embrace what is going to be transforming the way we do our educational enterprise to enable our students to get the best possible education. Questions, comments on this side? Jim?
Whether or not after there's been a kind of homogenization of the general ed so that students can seamlessly move back and forth, whether or not you see, and maybe we don't know about this yet, whether the university has a drive to eventually do the same thing with the majors and sort of make it possible for a student, say who's an English major at Lehman, to switch to York seamlessly, because all the courses are the same. And at that point, do you see the university really wanting to control the curriculum and dictate where it will be everywhere the same, and whether the university in the long run wants to just become one homogeneous college? I'm just wondering whether you have any thoughts on it, because looking at these things, two things together, I can see the synergy in the future maybe going that way.
I'll just make one observation and invite Cindy and Dean Militis to make an observation, because you raise an important aspect which I didn't cover in my initial remarks, and that is an aspect of the transfer students coming in majors that are significant numbers. And I think, and correct me, Dean Militis or Donna, initially the university identified 5 or 6 of the majors that have large numbers moving from community college to senior college. I think there were psychology, one was business, biology. One was biology,
nursing and teacher education.
Nursing. And so what the university has done is to put together faculty groups to talk about what may be programmatic synergies. And I'll allow Dean Militis and Cindy to talk a little bit, but thanks for that. But let me just make one comment on your latter point. I don't see a kind of university taking over. I think the university saying, and the very design of Pathways allows you the flexible core, but it also allows, by reducing, in our case, from 51 to 42, opportunity for majors to flesh themselves out. We had a conversation, the dean and I, with one department yesterday, and I said, you know, this is an opportunity for you to do what many others at York and elsewhere are doing. How can I get a new minor? How can I redesign my existing major to take advantage of the 9 credits that are now freed? Dean?
The university, parallel to the Pathways effort, they had these faculty committees for the 5 most popular majors. That's how they were defined, to identify some entry-level foundation courses for these majors that would be equivalent across the university. That some of these, or at least 4 of those committees, determine which courses those are, and they made their recommendations to the university. But going to the point where in some foreseeable future, we will see identical degree programs at Lehman, at York, at City and Hunter, I don't think that this is something that we should aspire to, or we should be able to accomplish at some point, because as we know, the degree programs are pretty much defined, at least at the upper division level, they are defined by faculty expertise. So people at Lehman who may or may not have the same expertise or with faculty at York may have similar courses at the upper division, but certainly there is going to be a lot of diversity that is not going to make the degree programs generic. We don't even see that within the same college, and we don't even see that within programs that are accredited by the same professional organizations. So I don't think that the pathways is a front effort to go that way.
Any thoughts, Cindy?
I would like to add about the word control. There are degrees of control, right? Any one of us, when we sat on the course review committees or Donna's committee, every college is developing its own general education pathways curriculum. It isn't a uniform thing. No one's handing me a syllabus and saying, you have to teach this, you have to do that. And I've been amazed at the English composition course variety. The key thing that this is aiming for some standardization, as Deborah can say she was on that committee, is the outcomes. Some kind of agreement on the student outcomes, the learning outcomes. What do we want our students to be learning from our general education curriculum? But there are many ways to get to an end, many different diverse paths, and I don't see that diversity decreasing. And I also know enough about faculty to know that faculty are not likely to be herded in that kind of a way as well.
Round of applause for Cindy and Dean Mellities. Thank you. We'll move next into another We'll move into another foundational, transformational project. Delighted to invite Assistant Provost Henke and Dean Gibson to share with us something about Foundations of Excellence. I'm just going to turn it over to them to do their Henke and Gibson team thing.
Thank you, Provost. This one, Foundations of Excellence. Okay. So now that you're all properly primed, allow me a few, and Tom Gibson, Dean Gibson, a few words on the Foundations of Excellence initiative. When we were invited by the Provost to say a few words here, we're actually very pleased that we got a little land real estate in this program, because this is an initiative that's vying a little bit for attention among these other 2 or 3 big initiatives that we're undertaking, and I think that's for a good reason as well. However, I think there's also an opportune moment that we are currently in to sort of use this initiative also to see what we can gather from it and how it may inform some of the other things we're doing, in particular the Pathways initiative. So what is the Foundations of Excellence initiative that we started in the fall of last year? And I want to say a few words on that part, and then a few words on where we are and the next steps, as well as some of the low-hanging fruits that we're starting to reap from this initiative. And then Dean Gibson has a few data points that come out of the initiative already. So the Foundations of Excellence initiative is a best practices process that is developed by the John Gardner Institute for Excellence in Undergraduate Education. And they do indeed have an expertise, as they have been undertaking this initiative at numerous dozens, possibly hundreds of institutions across the nation that are similar, maybe not so similar, and maybe quite different from your college. In any case, they have this applied this initiative in various places and collected a lot of information and expertise. It's a comprehensive self-study, improvement and implementation process really. That's how I would characterize it. It includes an elaborate interactive website that steers the process and assists working on committee reports. There are also 2 comprehensive surveys that were already launched. One was in the fall to the staff and faculty, not all faculty, but mostly those who are primarily, mainly engaged in first-year students teaching. And another survey also in the fall that went to the students as well. And we're coming back to that a little while. It's also, I would say, a task force-driven form of assessment. The Gardner Institute has identified 9 relevant dimensions that are defining students' first-year experiences. The subcommittees that exist, there are 9 of them, are grouped around those dimensions. The surveys were done already, as I indicated, and currently the subcommittees are currently working on gathering information and completing their reports. So if your office is being approached by any of the co-chairs for assistance, please make yourself available. And this could be requests for critical documents that have been floating around over the years or recently. It may be a short interview or a short focus group interview with staff or faculty or students. The process also moves beyond a focus on individual programs to a coordinated plan for improving the first year or transfer experience. And since we involve staff, faculty, and students from different disciplines and offices, we are really working towards a more multidimensional and, if you wish, holistic picture of the student first-year experience. In fact, the report should even address, in my mind, issues of transition to the sophomore year, since that's a place where we're losing a lot of our students. So first year is the focus of this initiative, but I think we may also want to look a little bit, how can we transition to the next step? And then finally, this is, as I said, action-oriented. There will be a strategic action plan at the end of the process, and we will have 9 separate reports from the subcommittees that will have to be integrated into a comprehensive campus-wide report. And we will also, in this report, have a manageable amount of actionable recommendations to be implemented. I just wanted to show you which are the dimensions, and some of, well, actually all, I hope, of the staff, faculty, and students that are actually involved with this. So hopefully there is some conversation going on. And the amount of people that you're seeing here also serves a practical purpose in that it helps us to achieve a certain division of labor in each of these subcommittees, which, if the chairs do this right, should minimize, hopefully, the amount of work that each and every group has to accomplish. In terms of next steps then, as I mentioned, we're hoping to complete the subcommittee reports in the next few weeks. I think 1 or 2 actually submitted a report already. We are also currently exploring the opportunity of bringing John Gardner himself to our campus to share with us his expertise and experience of having done this process so many times before. And currently I think we're looking at a mid-March date, possibly the 11th, if you want to make a note on that already. Once all reports are in, there's a steering committee as well, which is part of this process. And it involves a number of administrators in student development, academic affairs, and some other places, to sort of try and see how these reports mesh with each other and perhaps contradict each other and make sense out of these synergies or discrepancies that we will find. In any case, it's their task then, and it will be a process that, again, goes with shared drafts back to the subcommittees, but will be a task mainly that the steering committee will have to accomplish. And it's our goal to have this whole process conclude by the end of May, indeed. So what are some of the low-hanging fruits that we're already seeing? I believe there are some positive spin-offs that we're seeing from the process. Dean Gibson and myself had opportunity for interaction with other CUNY campuses who are also undertaking the same effort at the moment, as well as with staff from the Gardner Institute. And those were interesting and fruitful meetings to attend. Also, we had the opportunity in the fall to attend a workshop by the Gardner Institute on collaboration issues that are common at many institutions between academic affairs and student development divisions. And as a consequence, coming out of that very, very energetic meeting that we attended and very rewarding, I think, meeting that we went to, we developed some recommendations for greater and more meaningful interaction between student development and academic affairs. We also identified a number of items that we want to collaborate on. For example, in regard to providing internships, service learning opportunities, full implementation of the early alert system. You may remember we started this as a pilot. This is a system whereby faculty will be enabled to electronically raise concerns that they may have with individual students, and then will other offices spring and help to assist. E-portfolio as one initiative among others that will put students at the center of constructing their own learning, and similar best practices supporting student engagement. And I can tell you, for me personally, having been involved in this exercise, I've also started to re-evaluate some of my priorities, not an epiphany necessarily, but I see myself putting greater emphasis on student learning and student success. And I think that, like for many other institutions, which are always working to improve graduation and retention rates, I think for us too, there's a challenge to transition away from simply just providing the delivery of teaching to actually producing learning. And I'm using this kind of vocabulary deliberately. In order to get there, I think we collectively need to recognize that it is not just about what goes on in the classroom, not just what goes on in the library, not just what goes on in student development, in advisement, or in academic affairs, but it's about building meaningful connections and networks to intentionally support student experiences and student learning as they interact with all of these different areas. I believe we can and need to be more deliberate in our efforts to break down silos of everyday routine and perspectives, and all as an institution recognize that institutional success is indeed equivalent with student success and vice versa. And with that, I want to ask Tom to share a few data points out of the student survey, I believe, that we undertook.
Right. Do you mind if I report from here? Is that okay? Okay. Thank you, Holger. As Holger shared earlier, part of the Foundations of Excellence data collection efforts involve administering 2 surveys, one to faculty and staff, and the other to students. These students were either first year or transfer students in the fall of 2001. But today I'm going to briefly focus on the student survey. There were 118 students who responded to the survey, and they responded to perceptions of various aspects of their York College experience. Their responses were extremes of highly effectiveness, and there were some areas whereas they reported that the college needed to do some improvement. So I think I want to start with two areas in which the students perceived that the college were highly effective. The first was the quality of instruction, their learning. So the respondents overwhelmingly expressed satisfaction with the quality of instruction that they received. The institution target for the level of effectiveness was a 3.5, but the students responded, and we actually earned a score of a 3.84. So please join me in congratulating some of my faculty colleagues. Students, they're very satisfied with the level of instruction that they receive from all of you. Standards of behavior. Now, this particular factor deals with the students' perception of the college's ability to communicate the importance of academic honesty and ethical conduct. And again, according to the students, they believe that the college was extremely effective in communicating the importance of academic honesty. And again, we exceeded the target. The target, again, was a 3.5. We earned a 3.67. Okay. Now, the other extreme, academic advisement, okay, which may not be so surprising to some. Well, students responded that they were least satisfied with the level of academic advisement provided to them. As an institution, we were not perceived as being very effective in this area. And as a quick digression, because I had the ability to kind of drill down and look at the questions that were posed to students, and I think one of the areas in which the students felt as though we can do a better job on is, in addition to ensuring that they are registered for accurate and the correct courses to fulfill their degree requirement, they really want to hear conversations about what should they be doing after college. What are the things they need to start doing now to prepare for graduate study or work after college? They want to hear from you your advice on whether they should transfer. Hopefully that advice would be no. But they want to hear rather or not if they're experiencing some difficulties in their studies, that they can come or go to their faculty advisor for support. So this is the area in which they really would like faculty members to engage them in. Making connections. Now, this was personally somewhat surprising for me, whereas students responded that they were least satisfied with the college's ability to connect them with faculty out of class. Yeah. Who knew that that was an issue for them? Additionally, students perceived the college as not being so effective in communicating the importance of their participation in out-of-class activities. These are just some data points that I found to be interesting. Hopefully shortly we will be able to make the entire instrument available, as well as the full survey results. And the thought would be to make these materials available via a Foundations of Excellence website. So again, I have just one announcement, if you will indulge me. On March the 7th, the Study Abroad and Study Away Fair will take place, and this fair is being sponsored by the Department of Foreign Languages and the Division of Student Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Gibson. Thank you, Dr. Henke. And I want to recommend that we embrace, as suggested by our colleagues, the pursuit of foundations of excellence, and we'll hear more as the work winds up this semester. Let me invite now Dr. Paglione and Dr. Barley to join us up front, and each of them will tell us a little bit about initiatives that they're part of the leadership of, the periodic review report as listed for Dr. Paglione, and the charter review project as listed for Dr. Barley. I don't know who's going to come first, but
I drew the short straw.
Okay.
So, hi, thank you all for hanging in there. And just an update on where the PRR is right now. The main work of the PRR is to respond to the Middle States visit that happened in '08, respond to their recommendations to our self-study, as well as to our recommendations that we wrote in our self-study. There were 25 of those and a few recommendations from Middle States. So we had a steering committee together, and I want to acknowledge their work and also the work of my fellow co-chairs, Gila Acker and Donna Chirico. We scattered through the college, gathered up data and information to address those recommendations and see that the college had, actually responded properly in the last 5 years. And so all of that work is now being compiled into the report. Very different from the self-study. The PRR mostly is a planning document in one way, so that it is somewhat reflective, but we also look ahead to challenges and opportunities. And a lot of administrative stuff is also in the PRR, how well we are doing assessment and how well the assessment efforts are feeding back into planning. That's explicitly addressed in the PRR, and the administration's working hard on that. So in March, there should be a document for review by the various other constituents around the college. And I just want to acknowledge all the hard work of the steering committee and the administration and everyone that's been involved with the PRR. We really appreciate it. Oh, and especially Judy Murphy for all of her help in the President's office. And I think that's basically it for me.
Any questions for Professor Paglione?
No space shuttle this time.
I'm going to move to the podium just because
Very nice.
it's more comfortable for me. Each of you received, first of all, thank you for hanging in here and being for the last two comments. It's my honor to, if you will, report out briefly to you on behalf of the entire committee. In your program, you have a little palm card, and this palm card shows you that the document is available online, and I know you are reading. I've already received at least 4 emails with questions and comments. When this is a good thing, we welcome it. You will also notice that it has several dates and times, and in a moment, I'll review that with you. In brief, there are some highlight comments that I can use to evoke your future reading and conversations. The recommendation that the committee is moving forward contains a couple of very strategic points. I know the word is overused. It recommends the adoption of the senatorial model. This means regardless of the number of faculty in a department, there will be 2 faculty representatives, as opposed to being tied to a range of number of faculty that can wax and wane with budgets and resignations and retirements, etc. This, if you will, stabilizes that. In the hope for inclusion and shared governance, the document is recommending the inclusion of non-instructional staff, where before They were not part of this governance body. They were not stakeholders per se. We're also, in lieu of the changes with the Perez open meeting laws, we are establishing or recommending to you alternates to the Senate and alternates specifically to the Standing Committee on Curriculum. The former documents that precede 1973, 1976, 1986 were very clear that alternates and proxies were not allowed. This will be a change. We are acknowledging in this document and establishing the presence and the voice of the 3 schools that were established in, I think it was 2007. 9, sorry. The current document is absent that language. The new recommendations to you very clearly acknowledge and incorporate into committee structures. And it is important because the acknowledgement is in the inner workings of a college, which are the standing committees that report to the Senate. The committee also took in conversation and questions from multiple sources and embodied them in its review of the standing committees. There are some changes that are recommended. There is one that is deleted but folded with another, and that would be admissions, academic standards, and policies. The suggestion is to fold a committee into there. We are making some recommendations to establish a standing committee on governance, and that will become an integral, functional unit within the Senate that allows us to have an effective Senate that is able to monitor, to update itself, and to be responsive to time and need. Springtime dance card. I call it the dance card because we're going to be running from one place to another, and most of the members will be available. And you'll see that we have this really positive viewpoint with, we want a resolution and we're hoping for ratification. It's a hope. Today is the 21st, and again, we want to thank everyone for putting us on the agenda because it is now, if you will, in your hands. You as the college community will want to read, to discuss, and we invite you in these separate venues to come and have the open dialogue that is so essential for shared governance. The college-wide P&B has invited the committee, and we will report to this body that has a separate invitation list, sorry. We will have an open meeting with the student caucus. We have been invited to the faculty caucus. And what's not there is, no, the open forum is on the 27th. I skipped over that one wrong. Start at the top. The open forum will be held in the faculty dining room, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Come one, come all, bring your papers. We are looking forward to having this dialogue. If we are, as a body, ready to move forward, we anticipate the motion and the second to move this resolution onto the agenda at the March plenary session. According to the current charter, the call for the question ratification cannot occur in the same meeting. It occurs in the following meeting, so we're hopeful. And if all goes well, CUNY Board of Trustees' agenda will be able to receive an act. I want to acknowledge all of the individuals who've worked on the committee. This is just a history of updates, and we can post this for you on the President's Initiative webpage, so you can find it again. But visually, please notice, we have been consistently invited and responded and been reaching out to constituents, to stakeholders throughout the college over the past 2.5 years. Our current membership, and I say current because it has waxed and waned, Susan Letney
Margaret McNeil. Prior to that, it was Maria Elena Pinafonte, who is no longer with us. But I want to acknowledge the faculty who have been consistent, who have been there, who have been articulate, who have been open, and who have been responsive. Our students this year, of course, Shirley Jackson and Leonard Angelo San Miguel, and they have been consistent and present, and I want to say thank you to the VP for making sure they got there. I would also like to thank our administrators who are new this past year to the process, both Geneva Walker-Johnson and Alfred Ntoko. They have both been present and working with us. Our ex officio members, Olga Deas, William Janello, and Teresa Rooney, who is the new faculty caucus leader this year, who's out with an injury, so we've welcomed back in her stead in the meantime, Farley Moyer. This has been a college-wide effort, lots of conversation, and I can only say to you, thank you for your patience, and we're hoping that we will be able to answer all of your questions. That's it, folks.
And again, thanks to all the colleagues working on the middle stage project and the charter review. 2 items before we leave. A collective round of applause for all the people who have put this together and who presented. And second, I'd invite you to turn to the back of your program where we've got a number of key dates. We begin with the first spring provost lecture next week from a colleague in teacher education, and we move into March 5th. The business school has started an exciting faculty research seminar, but I want to have you look in the middle of the page. April 18, our 4th Student Research Day. Please mentor as many students as you can to participate. We want to make it bigger and better than last year. We're delighted to have as our keynote Dr. Partha Mitra, who is doing some outstanding work on brain research. And incidentally, some of you may have noticed in the New York Times of early this week, I think it was on Sunday, an article talking about the importance of brain research and how President Obama is putting a lot of money and emphasis on understanding the brain. So we look forward to having Dr. Mitra tell us not only what some of his exciting work is, but how that work connects to the broader landscape of research on brain matters. Thanks to all who were here, who had to leave, but we're delighted to now have a moment to have a bite outside. Thanks very much. Have a wonderful day.